Welcome to the segment on downwind sailing in the Inner Lake. Before we look at the intricacies of the Inner Lake downwind, what we want to do is look at the three different ways that you can sail the Inner Lake downwind. First is the traditional method, where the skipper is on the windward rail and the crew is centered on the centerboard trunk, flying the spinnaker. The advantage of this position is that the boat is well balanced. The downside is no one's looking backwards for wind. If you had a third crew, that person would be with their back to the boom, looking back for the wind. Another method is with the skipper to leeward and the crew to windward. This position is very popular with those that sail two up. The skipper has a clear view behind of both the breeze and the other boats on the racecourse. The crew has full range of the guy and the sheet on the spinnaker and has a good, powerful position from a leverage standpoint. One thing you want to be careful of is the balance of the boat. As you can see, this boat is tracking differently than it was with the skipper sitting to windward. The leeward chine is in the water as opposed to the windward chine being in the water with the skipper to windward. So you want to make sure that you have a good balanced boat so that the boat's tracking through the water nicely. Any heel one way or the other will cause you to have to overcorrect with the tiller, and that is slow. A third way you can orient your crew wake downwind, and one that I prefer, is with the skipper sitting to windward and trimming the spinnaker while the crew turns behind and watches for breeze in boats. There are two things that make this method work particularly well. One is the crew is always looking for wind upwind, so their eye is trained to look for the same breeze downwind. Another reason this works, in my opinion, is that I'm able to change course and then do the subsequent changes on the sail trim all in one motion without having to communicate with the trimmer. Whichever style you choose, just make sure you're comfortable with your crew. Now let's take a close look at jibing the Inner Lake. Watch the crew work in coordination as Ryan and I go through this maneuver. Now let's look at the jibe in slow motion. This maneuver is very fluid. First thing that happens is Ryan goes for the guy hook. Then I'll start turning the boat once I see the guy is released. My head is up, watching the spinnaker and looking for the exit angle out of the jibe. Ryan pulls the boom over, and once the boom comes over, I stop my turn, and Ryan then goes for the spinnaker pull. Once the boom's across and everything's under control, it doesn't matter how long it takes to get the pole on, as long as the spinnaker's flying and you're going on max speed down course. Notice as Ryan's getting the pole, the boat is fully balanced and everything's under control. Once the pole is made onto the mast, Ryan then pushes it up to the tack of the spinnaker and then goes for the guy hook. Once Ryan gets the guy into the hook, I have him then cleat it. After it's cleated, I no longer have to worry about the guy section of the spinnaker. Maintaining good balance through any maneuver is critical. If the boat heels one way or the other, the only way that you can correct it quickly is through the tiller and rudder, and that's slow. Let's watch another jibe, this time in real time. Pay close attention to the various steps that we've just outlined. Ryan's reaching to unload the guy hook. Once the guy hook's unloaded, I start the turn. Ryan pulls the boom over, then goes straight to the pole. Through this maneuver, we paid close attention to the balance of the boat. Once again, any sort of heel one way or the other will force an auto correction through the rudder and tiller, and that's slow. As the breeze picks up, the steps don't change, but what does change is the focus on getting the boom across. The mainsail on the Inner Lake is huge. Let's watch. As Ryan releases the guy hook, watch what happens. The boat becomes a lot less stable. Now we'll slow it down as we go through this turn. Watch how Ryan's focus is solely on getting the boom across by pulling on the boom vang. I focus on stopping the turn as soon as the boom comes across. This is called the S-jibe, and it's the most controlled way to jibe a boat in heavy air. Once the boom's across and the boat's tracking downwind again, Ryan then goes for the pole and completes the steps, which are no different than in light air. One thing you want to be careful, and we're seeing it right here, is if you drive too deep out of the jibe, the spinnaker will get blanketed behind the mainsail. If this happens, the trimmer has to pull the sheet really hard, and the skipper needs to just give a few degrees of heat, meaning heading up into the wind a little, and there you see the spinnaker pops out. Once the spinnaker's full, just like we said before, it doesn't matter how long it takes to get the pole on, just so long as you're tracking downwind and the boat's stabilized. One thing to point out is watch how stable the boat gets once Ryan gets the guy into the hook. By pulling down on the windward end of the spinnaker, the boat becomes much more stable. Overall, the jibe was completed. Not fully successful because we lost the spinnaker behind the main, but in that kind of breeze, anytime you can escape a jibe, tracking downwind into the next mark, the better off you'll be. Now that we've analyzed the jibes, let's look at the takedown and cleanup as we would at the bottom mark. Here you see that Ryan has the jib up and has the sheets all sorted out and ready for the leeward mark rounding. The tricky thing in the interlake is making sure that you douse the spinnaker on the correct side of the jib sheet. Many times newer crew will bring it in behind the jib sheet. It has to go in front of the jib sheet. What we like to do is take the lazy sheet on the port side of the boat and just bring it in to the inside of the boat. That ensures a proper takedown. The guy's unloaded and the pole comes off, and we do what's called a free fly. Once the pole is stowed, then the crew can then go to the spinnaker, douse it, and put it into the turtle.